Good afternoon, everyone. We'll start the global webinar in next 3 to 4 minutes.
Good afternoon, Rakesh ji.
Hi Rahul, how are you?
Doing well.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thanks for joining today's global webinar. We have all the eminent speakers for the session. Before starting the webinar, we want to thank you to Government of India, specifically Niti Aayog, DHI, and all the relevant stakeholders and industry players for supporting and bringing this one of the unique PLI scheme, production link incentive for ACC battery manufacturing, which will definitely support the energy transition and also the decarbonization of the electricity grid and sustainable mobility. So today we'll discuss about the scheme and how India can leapfrog to the manufacturing ecosystem. So we have Sri Amitabh Kant, CEO Niti Aayog, as a chief guest. We'll also listen from Dr. Rahul Walawalkar, President ISA. He's also two-time board members of ESA, Energy Storage Association US, and also the past chair of Global Energy Storage Alliance. He will give a theme talk. We have also CXOs from different leading organizations from India, including Sri Rakesh Malhotra, founder SAR Group, Lifeguard. Also have Mr. Sri Anil Srivastava, very well-known face, Group Head Corporate Relations, Amar Raja Group. With him also we have Mr. Bizanan, CEO, Amar Raja. Also Sri Anant Nahata, Managing Director, Exicom. We have received overwhelming response for this webinar. More than 1,000 people shown interest to join. And if anyone is not able to join due to limited seats or someone is trying to join now, sorry for it. Feel free to reach to ISR team. We will happy to support beyond this webinar. Not taking much time, I invite Dr. Rahul to give the theme talk. And we received a message from Niti Aayog's office. Sir will join sometime in next few minutes. Once sir will join, then we will hand it over to him. Dr. Rahul, please.
Thank you very much, Debbie. Again, this is, I think, an exciting time for all of us. So, Debbie, can you make me presenter?
Yes, yes.
Yeah. So, so this is again result of a long journey which started with 2012 with creation of ISA, and many of the attendees are part of this transition. So again, thank you everyone who has contributed on this. But as Devi mentioned, for today's webinar, we have received overwhelming response with many entities who have not yet looked at Indian market opportunities very closely are also joining. So I'll take this opportunity to just share some of the background about India's market and the journey of the ACC program. So again, for regulars, apologies ahead of time for the repetition, but hopefully it will help some of the other new stakeholders to understand about the opportunity for R&D, manufacturing, and adoption of advanced storage technologies in India. So as all of you know, India Energy Storage Alliance was founded in 2012 with the goal of creating awareness about advanced energy storage and e-mobility technologies in India. In 2016, the Leadership Council of IESA decided that instead of focusing India to just as a market, we should start putting in effort to develop the R&D and manufacturing ecosystem. And that's where first time we approach Niti Aayog with a concept paper talking about what Niti Aayog can do for creating manufacturing ecosystem. And over last 4 years, that journey has led to now creation of the ACC battery manufacturing program. During this journey, now IESA family is also keeps on getting stronger day by day. We started with just 5 members back in 2012. Now we have more than 135 members spanning all the entire ecosystem, right from the battery manufacturers, power electronic manufacturers, electric vehicle manufacturers, charging infrastructure companies, renewable companies, R&D companies, utilities, and most recently we have also been spending time on building the supply chain ecosystem in anticipation of this ACC manufacturing program. IESA is also working collaboratively with more than 20 international associations to make sure that we can leapfrog in this area and do not end up putting in repetitive efforts. When we look at the IESA, we look at energy storage in a completely technology agnostic way, looking at electrochemical, mechanical, gravitational, thermal, chemical, electrical, as well as the power electronics associated with it. When it comes to the current ACC program and topic of today's, it is more focused on the advanced chemistry cells. So on the right hand side, we have showcased some of these technologies and how these technologies are evolving or anticipated to evolve over the next 5 years. The way the ACC program is designed, many of these technologies are eligible for participation. There are people who have already concluded that this ACC program will only lead to 1 or 2 types of batteries to be manufactured. But the design, the way Niti Aayog has done it is quite flexible, where the ultimate decision is for the companies who invest in the manufacturing line. And some of the trends, again, we need to understand sort of global trends. If you see the journey in last 10 years, like back in 2010, there were hardly like maybe 10 gigawatt hour global manufacturing capacity, which rose to around 50 gigawatt hour global capacity in 2015. As of 2020, we are now globally close to 500 gigawatt hour manufacturing capacity, and this is expected to get to at least 3,000 gigawatt hour manufacturing capacity in next 5 years. So this 50 gigawatt hour manufacturing in India is a first step, and we need to like start getting towards the implementation immediately. And this is a global race. As you can see from these charts, there is China is definitely a dominant leader in this space, but in last 2-3 years, Europe has stepped up, and there are close to 600 gigawatt hour of battery manufacturing announcements which have come up within last 6 months in Europe, and these facilities will come online anywhere from next year to maybe sometime in 24-25. Similarly, US is also stepping up activities. US is looking at now getting more than 200 to 50 gigawatt hour of manufacturing capacity commissioned within next 5 years as part of the new plan announced by President Biden. In India, this journey has taken some time, but there have been many concrete steps which have been taken over last 7-8 years, which will contribute towards creating of a robust market, both for stationary as well as e-mobility sector. And as a IESA, we have been privileged to be part of this journey and contributes towards shaping up of this policy framework. Now coming to the ACC battery storage program, and I'm sure Mr. Kant will share more details about it, but just to create background, I've included a couple of slides just to set the context about it. You can see that the minimum capacity which is expected for the core program is 5 gigawatt hour as a individual manufacturing facility. One company can apply for up to 20 gigawatt hour of incentives, and this capacity needs to come online within the 5 years period. This program is a output linked cash incentive. So this is something where, unlike some of the earlier previous manufacturing incentives where there was upfront capex incentive provided, this program requires companies to step up, select the technologies, choose right technologies, choose the right scale of manufacturing and invest, and the incentive is provided based on the output of it. There are other supporting things. It is not just about the cash incentive, but there is a favorable duty structure for both raw materials, capital equipment, as well as higher import duties for finished products being imported once this ACC program kicks in. So there is both carrot and stick approach which is being devised by Niti Aayog, and there are certain standard requirement in terms of the 225 crore per gigawatt hour investment which is anticipated, which is very consistent with some of the global investment trends what we are seeing in this. The technical criteria is the major criteria for selection, where 80% weightage is defined for technical parameters and 20% for commercial. Basically, government has already decided the ceiling for the incentive program, which is 2,000 rupees per kilowatt hour, and each company who is applying can ask for a different amount of incentive based on their own economics and their own expected cost of manufacturing. Within the 80% technical weightage, there is 70% weightage is assigned for the domestic value capture. So if a company is able to localize their supply chain and get higher value capture within India, then they get a higher weightage, and say the 30% of the technical selection scoring is reserved for scale of the manufacturing facility. So if you can set up manufacturing sooner, like in the first couple of years rather than the last 2 years of the 5-year window, then you will get higher weightage. There is a minimum value capture defined currently, which is 25%, which is expected in year 1, which even if you are importing all the raw and process materials, you should be able to do it by just doing the complete process of advanced chemistry cell manufacturing. And it is anticipated that within the 5 years, the companies will need to reach 60% value addition. And this is an area where what we feel is this is not program designed for just 5 or 10 companies who will set up the gigafactories, but this program will become an enabler for developing the complete end-to-end ecosystem in India. And that's the area where we are working very hard on. So in terms of the timelines, as most of you know, the draft RFP was released in November 2020. There were 1 month time provided for submitting certain comments, which most of the serious companies as well as associations, including IESA, have submitted. Now the final approval has come in by cabinet on 12th of May. We are anticipating there may be still few final tweaks which are happening, and the notification and the RFP should be released within next 2 months. DHI has promised that this RFP will come out sooner than what we are anticipating. So again, we will welcome that step, because we think that already it has taken a little bit longer than anticipated. So anyway, we can accelerate this process, it would be good. But we anticipate within next maybe 4 to 6 weeks, the actual RFP and tender should be released. By October 2021, it is expected that the window will be open for submitting applications. Again, some of these dates are subjected to change, so please make sure that once the actual tender document and RFP is released by Department of Heavy Industries, you pay attention to that. But this is just an indicative timeline, because this is most common question which people are asking us. So the 50 gigawatt hour manufacturing application program will close, and simultaneously we expect by that time some of the definitions about the niche ACC manufacturing program, which is reserved for additional 5 gigawatt hour of capacity. Now, just to give you context, this was the initiative which was actually taken by IESA, and we thank Mr. RP Gupta, who was spearheading this initiative at Niti Aayog, for accepting this recommendation. So our logic behind this is that the 5 gigawatt hour minimum manufacturing capacity will mean that companies will invest in technologies which are already commercialized or which are very close to commercialization right now. At the same time, as most of you know, this field is evolving very fast, and there are range of next generation technologies which are expected to get commercialized by 2025. Now, it will be very difficult for a company investing right now to commit to manufacturing 5 gigawatt hour manufacturing with those technologies. But if we enable these technologies to set up manufacturing plants of say 100 to 500 megawatt hour scale, then apart from setting up the gigafactory pipeline in India, we can actually get at least 10 or more companies to start setting up advanced R&D and pilot lines in India for next generation technologies, which will enable us to take foundation for the next 10 years. And as a IESA, we are very glad and thankful to Niti Aayog for setting the vision for 50 gigawatt hour manufacturing, but we are not stopping there. This is just a starting step. What we wish is that by March 22, the 50 gigawatt hour manufacturing will be awarded. By 2027, the manufacturing, the process, or 27-28, the actual all 50 gigawatt hour facilities will become operational. But we are already looking at how we can look at doubling that capacity from 50 gigawatt hour to 100 gigawatt hour by 2030, and looking at scaling it up to at least 500 gigawatt hour by 2035. Obviously, we need to take first steps first. So we will focus right now on coming months for addressing any concerns with any applicants have, to understand where is the market opportunity, how they can develop it. And here is just some analysis done by CES and released as part of various IESA reports. Many companies are questioning that right now, since the actual market is less than 5 gigawatt hour, how can we look at 50 gigawatt hour? Is it too ambitious goal set up by Niti Aayog? But no, we think there are lots of studies that have been done, and our own analysis suggests that by the time the gigafactories are expected to be operational, India's market in a base case estimate will be at least 80 gigawatt hour. On the base case scenario, or assuming all the other supporting policies, including demand creation policies, kick in a timely fashion, this could be more than 100-120 gigawatt hour as an annual market by 2028. So 50 gigawatt hour is not going to be a capacity which will even meet complete India's capacity, but Niti Aayog has made it flexible, where the way the program is designed, you can even export products outside. So there is no limitation. As long as you are manufacturing these products in India, you can get the incentive program, and you can even, if you have some buyback agreements with your partners, you can export some of these products outside India. So they have taken out lots of risk for the companies. And again, the way the industry is evolving, the electric vehicle industry, as well as the renewable energy industry and other supporting applications, we ourselves are very confident that 50 gigawatt hour is not going to be sufficient to meet majority of the India's demand. So there is definitely scope for growth beyond that. And as I mentioned, we are projecting for 2030 the demand to be more than 150 gigawatt hour. So we think we should be looking at scaling up from 50 gigawatt hour in 27-28 to at least 100 gigawatt hour by 2030. If you need more information about this, IESA each year releases the annual market report for both stationary and e-mobility markets. So you can get those details, which includes various scenario analysis, information on policy and demand drivers. Now we are trying to do certain steps in especially next 5 or 6 months to make sure that we can help companies who are serious about this in every step of this journey. So apart from today's global webinar, we are organizing series of roundtables to focus on every part of the ecosystem. Again, today's webinar is open and we are allowing everyone who is interested to participate, but future events will be mainly limited for IESA members and companies who are really committed to investing in India. So these includes roundtables on raw material and supply chain for gigafactories on 4th June. On 11 June, we are doing a roundtable on components and equipment for gigafactory manufacturing. On 19th, we will be doing a separate webinar talking about the advanced and niche battery chemistries along with Department of Science and Technology. And then there are various country roundtables and partner workshops which are also planned, where DEBI and ISA team is coordinating very closely with various government agencies, including Invest India, as well as all the individual country trade promotion agencies. So stay in tune. These will happen over next 2 or 3 months as more details about the ACC program gets announced. So we are not doing it as just one-time activity, but we will be there with you throughout this process. Obviously, ultimately, the factories will get built in some states, and this is the area where we are really excited that there is a very strong competition amongst all the states for attracting these investments. And many of the states already have announced energy storage and EV manufacturing policies. They are taking additional steps for creating local demand, making certain land parcel available, creating certain common infrastructure. So we will be setting up series of state investment forum activities where interested companies can interface with the state agencies and get support on that. Apart from that, we are doing a 5-day masterclass where for companies, again, this is meant for CXOs, where we will handhold companies in terms of helping them understand about the technologies, understand both central and state government policies, understand about the market, understand how to set up gigafactory. We will have speakers coming from different equipment manufacturing companies who will provide videos and examples of how this process is set up, the raw material and process material opportunities, and we will then move on to the actually cell to pack, the demand side of it, safety, performance testing, second life, recycling, and export import issues. And final day, we will have 3 roundtables talking about R&D initiatives, skill development required to support this type of a gigafactory manufacturing, and the final manufacturing roundtable. We are also not limiting our activities on the manufacturing side, because we know the biggest question people have is on the demand side. And this is the area where, again, DHI and Niti Aayog have planned series of activities, and they're coordinating with 6 different ministries for taking concrete steps for demand creation. And we are looking at supporting it through various activities under the EV Adopter Circle initiative of ISA for automotive side, and ESS Meet for stationary storage area. So please stay in touch, and you can see these activities all taking place within next 4 months. And then we will conclude this with the World Energy Storage Day, which gets celebrated each year on 22nd September. This is the last year's speaker profile featuring Professor Stanley Whittingham, the Nobel laureate who invented lithium-ion batteries, as the keynote speaker. But many other speakers will be there. So again, please mark your day for 22nd September. And we are trying to align some additional activities and big announcements which you will hear on the day. Last year, as you may be aware, Tesla used the World Energy Storage Day for announcing their own plans of getting up to 3,000 gigawatt-hour manufacturing of their own. So you will hear more such announcements on this year as well. And this is not focused only on India, but it's a global event. We are also working very closely on startups. So we are not only focusing on giant manufacturing companies and raw material and supply companies. We have an active program where we are working closely with METI, Startup India, Invest India, and some of the other agencies for supporting startups. There is a Unido Innovation Challenge, which is being managed currently by ISA and Customized Energy Solutions team, where we are even helping companies who have developed beta products to get funding for doing initial beta deployment. And this is something which was lacking in India so far, where many companies who have innovative products end up struggling to find a way to demonstrate that. So under this project, people are getting $50,000, up to $50,000 each for demonstrating innovative energy storage and e-mobility technologies. And currently the final round of selection is going on. And sometime next month, the winners of the first round will be announced, but it is expected that this innovation challenge will continue for next 3 years. For staying more up to date on this, you can subscribe to the ATN magazine, visit etn.news as a portal for getting real-time news, subscribe to our podcast, or you can purchase various industry reports or knowledge reports for staying informed. So again, I hope this was a good overview for some of you who are looking at India as a market for the first time. Apologies for someone who have heard it multiple times for me explaining it, but we just thought today was a good opportunity to bring everyone to the starting table and take the discussion forward. So if there are any questions, I will be happy to answer, or if Mr. Kant has arrived, we can maybe hand it over to Mr. Kant for the keynote presentation.
Yes, Rahul, let me check with Mr. Kant. In meantime, we can take your questions from the audience. Is anyone from the CEO's office from Niti Aayog? Yes, they have joined. Hello. Yes, so there is the questions, Rahul. Is there any startups can be included in this scheme or in any other opportunities for them in energy storage space?
Sure. So again, if you talk about the ACC manufacturing program, globally we are seeing opportunities where there are even startup companies who are able to demonstrate their ability to get into manufacturing, and they are raising funds to or partner with strategic investors to set up gigafactories. In Indian context, we have to wait and see if the companies who are ready to invest are they ready. I think yes, the way the program is designed, it is startups can, if they are in a position to start looking at 5 gigawatt program, then they can apply, or otherwise they can wait for, if they are working with certain niche next generation technologies, they can wait for the announcement of the or details of the niche program, which should be announced within next 6 months. So there should be opportunities for both established companies, companies who are looking at diversifying, as well as early stage companies to get involved. But the program is structured in a very, very methodical way, so that Niti Aayog and DHI definitely want people who are very, very serious about it. They don't want this to become one more case where there are lots of press releases, announcements, and it is not followed by it. So the program has both carrot and stick approach. If you are not able to deliver, there are penalties which are associated with it. Some of the incentives which are linked are based on the performance. So there is a ample amount of care has been taken by the Niti Aayog team on designing this program to ensure that we get serious contenders to apply for it, and that leads to building a robust ecosystem in India.
Is the PLI scheme is only for private companies or public sector companies can also apply for it? The questions from Ankur Patil from DHL.
Sure. No, so the program is open for all entities. It can be open for private as well as public sector companies. In fact, we do expect at least 2 or 3 PSUs to apply for the program based on what we know. And also, again, as you know, the electricity sector is allows 100% FDI. So this program is also open for completely international players to come in and establish their base in India. At the same time, we feel that there are many Indian companies who are actively scouting for partnerships, and you'll hear from some of them in today's meeting itself. But we think there would be a lot of collaboration opportunities in this space. But as far as Niti Aayog is concerned, they have made it completely open and flexible, where choice of technology, choice of partner, the scale of the manufacturing, everything can be determined by the bidder.
There is another interesting question. So we are in a different industry. So we want to diversify into energy storage. So will you able to sustain in this business? Interesting one.
So again, I think this is, I think, as a classic answer by a consultant, it depends, because again, without knowing what are your capabilities as a thing, it is difficult to mention. But yes, there are companies who do diversify. There are many companies who started in completely different areas and have gone into it. But at the same time, again, you need to have very strong understanding of the customer side, technology, and other things. So there is an inherent biased towards companies who know what they are doing, who will have the slightly upper hand. But at the same time, as we are looking at some major technology disruption, right? Like for last 100 years, the energy storage industry was dominated by lead acid batteries, and there is a very robust ecosystem which has been built on that. But now we are seeing certain new players coming up, and again, some of these players are not completely new. They have been working on it for more than 20 or 30 years themselves. But then suddenly now we are noticing in last 2-3 years many new innovations coming in. Like for example, if you see even the Tesla's plan, where they started with their first gigafactory with Panasonic, now they have acquired a small ultra capacitor manufacturing company called Maxwell, and they are applying their process to do a next generation coating technology, which can enable Tesla to do their own cell manufacturing without a partner. So this is a very dynamic industry, and I think there are enough opportunities. If you know what you're doing, if you do your homework, then there are opportunities, but you need to have a risk appetite and ability to execute.
Okay, Rahul, in meantime, Dibanian also, can you check with Mr. Amitabh Khan's office? We're at 4:30. So let's check with them.
Vijayanand and Rakeshji, again, as part of the IESA leadership board, again, if you want to add on some of these questions, feel free to jump in. You have a lot more experience in this area than me, so I don't want to take all the time. Feel free to jump in and add. Vijayanand, I see you are there, so please feel free to add if you want to have any additional suggestions for some of the new applicants.
Yeah, Rahul, thanks for getting this platform. I think this is something that we have been waiting with anticipation for many years now. I'm very happy to see that now the formal seal of approval for this scheme has been given by the cabinet, which means the ball gets rolling now. The question from somebody about, can in any organization that has nothing to do with energy storage so far get into this, why not? In fact, globally, many people who got into gigafactories are people who have not been involved with energy storage in the classical sense. The consumer electronic giants have come into that. If you look at the investments happening in Europe, it's all happening from people who are not necessarily involved with energy storage. And I hope that India also will throw up those surprise winners through this PLI scheme. Though I don't belong to that, I don't get qualified for that because we come from the classical energy storage industry.
Rakeshji, you're on mute. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. And I said likewise for me. I mean, we belong to the classic energy storage industry, but I think the ability to take the leap of faith sometimes can also be positively impacted by the lack of baggage of knowing the risks. So when I mean, I can't say for Vijay, but when I look at it, by virtue of being in the industry for long enough, you are able to appreciate and sort of even amplify some of the risks that might be there along the way on technology, on market adoption, and so on and so forth. But I guess there will be some degree of fresh fresh blood from outside of the storage industry that will come in this time around, and I'm also quite excited to see that happen. But of course, that said, the risks involved are significant, and the capital commitments and the conditions that have been put in are also not trivial, and as a result of which, it won't really lend itself to a classical early stage startup to apply for it, but it can lead to many interesting partnerships which might involve financial, technology, and operational partnerships coming together. So I guess we'll have to wait and see how it all pans out, but it's open for a lot of permutations and combinations, is what I would say.
So Rahul, as we all the panelists are here, so let's continue with the discussion, and we'll wait for Sri Amitabh Khanji. So there is an interesting questions. As we will invest for 5 GWh, there will be a capital investment, and if there will be no market as we are expecting, and they mentioned specific some numbers from ISA in the chart. So what will be our backup?
So again, I think this is the most common question, and this is the question where again, Nokia and many other companies like they missed the boat with the smartphone manufacturing because they never believed that the market is going to happen. And classically, it happens wherever there is that hockey stick part of the curve. If you don't get the sort of the inflection point of it, you can either get burned because you invest too early and then you are not utilizing your facility, or you end up not completely missing out and being too late as an entrant. Again, I can just tell you that based on what we are seeing, and it is not just about India. This is not because government is saying that we should do it. The entire analysis what ISA team is doing, and this is something which we have been doing now for last 7 years. We are seeing this application by application, the economics, the technology performance is enabling energy storage to start playing role in certain areas. So we are actually very confident that actually our projections, what I presented, are actually sort of the worst case scenario. But at the same time, obviously, you may not want to just rely on that for it. So the way the Niti Aayog has designed the program is you are completely free to sell it to even outside. There is no restriction that you need to only supply all this manufacturing to customers in India. But if you notice, this is not about just the battery manufacturing investment, right? There are almost 13 other PLIs where many of those also will lead to creation of demand for the sector. Just take examples of mobile phones. It's a huge market, and already we are importing more than 2-3 gigawatt hour of cells just for consumer electronics. You look at some of the new markets coming up like electric two-wheelers. Maybe last year only 100,000 electric two-wheelers were sold, but right now already you have Ola, Ather, and many other companies announcing they are looking at getting to 5 to 10 million electric two-wheelers every year within the span of next 5 years. So now, unless someone is very, very pessimistic and just doesn't believe on anyone, then I think you will doubt. But otherwise, as far as we are concerned, we are very confident with our numbers and projections. I don't know if Anil ji or others want to add something on this area.
Yes, I also asked Anil ji because as he was before his private engagement, he was actively engaged in the policy making. So, sir, your views on the demand side, if someone is investing in multi-gigafactories, how you see the demand? Sir, you're muted. Sir, you are muted. You can unmute yourself.
A
Yes,
very
sir.
good afternoon to everybody, and I'm happy to be participating in my new avatar, and it's a sea change, but let's see. And I'm very sure that the way I've been adding value to the public service, I should be in a position to add value to whichever enterprise I take up. So, friends, what Devi you are saying is that challenge everybody has to accept that. A business enterprise. That's what is entrepreneurship. Why Ola has gone in for manufacturing of electric two-wheeler vehicles, and that too in such large numbers. So that is something which needs to be looked into. Now the question is that, and since Rahul, you were repeatedly mentioning about is that the government has said that you can sell your product outside. Well, let me tell you, Rahul, before we make this statement, is the government prepares the ecosystem in such a way that Indian company can really export it to outside? Do they really provide the kind of incentives and the other issues which are provided by the China or other countries? No, not at all. So the thing is that it's very easy to say that you can manufacture and sell it outside. But then, yes, the market is outside, the market is in India, and as it happens in all other products. I'm saying as it happens in all other products, the market of India is being used by foreign manufacturers, foreign technology owners. So the issue is that we have to take care of this, face this situation and move forward. And that's where the catalyst role and the supportive role of the government does arise. And I'm very sure that as I was also involved, we tried to do it, and the DHI and Niti Aayog will take it forward in the same spirit as to the entrepreneur or the people who are investing from the India. They get the sufficient incentive to move forward, even for the export and for the local market. Now the issue is that, as I said, yes, but has to make the investments at the right point of time. But then there are challenges which need to be looked into. And there are challenges for the success of any enterprise, which are certainly in terms of the cost of capital is one of the major challenges the Indian investors do face. And along with that is the technology. One has to project, one has to see as to which technology has to progress and which technology should be adopted.
Sure. So Anilji will definitely take your inputs on this and work on making sure that if there are any specific changes which we need to enact in next 2 or 3 years to supporting export sector, then IESA will definitely work on that as well. So look forward to your guidance for that.
Yeah.
So there is another question, maybe a fundamental question, but how will raw material supply chain resilience be ensured? From Mr. Samir Guduru. Anyone from the panelists?
So the raw material is available. In fact, when we talk about the lithium ion, as we have been making projections and we have prepared the reports also, the raw material is not really the issue in terms of the lithium, cobalt, and manganese and the things which are not available in India. And there are supply chains and they are available. There are different countries and the companies which are already there in the market. So they need to be tapped and they need to be. The issue is that how do you make yourself cost competitive? That is the most important, the major issue.
Yeah. So maybe just to add, so again, in terms of the raw material, again, traditionally, since there was no manufacturing for this, many of these manufacturing things were not even explored. Like till 2 years back, lithium exploration itself was not happening in India. And now within 2 years, we have already discovered lithium reserves which can support more than 100 gigawatt hour of manufacturing. Also, one other aspect I would like to mention is the way the global ecosystem is evolving around this. And again, lead acid is an excellent example of it, where some people may not be aware, but lead acid batteries is perhaps one of the most recycled item, not just batteries in the world. With more than 95 or in some cases even 98% recycling thing. So same thing is being attempted even with lithium ion batteries, and it's not necessarily that all the recycled material needs to be used back into the battery manufacturing itself. There may be different grade of products and they can be used in different industries as well. But overall, there is a circular economy, something which many researchers and many companies are working on. And many of the electrochemistries within lithium-ion batteries are already economically viable for recycling and supplying it back into the ecosystem. So we do hope that in next 10 years, actually the recycled material can start becoming actually a sizable part of the ecosystem, and it's not always going to be just greenfield mining. But then the key actually constraint I feel for India is actually the processing ability, because it is not about just raw materials. You are not taking just raw materials and mixing them somewhere and then making the batteries. You need to make sure that you have the processing industry which has the ability to manufacture certain battery grade, certain precision manufacturing, and that's area where it's going to require additional set of investment. But with the signal what we are seeing right now with companies, international companies like BASF, the domestic companies like Himadri Chemicals, Epsilon Carbon, Manikaran Lithium, Gujarat Fluorocarbon, and many other companies starting to look at this ecosystem, we think we can definitely get there. And as far as the ACC program is concerned, there is a 5-year window where all these localization is expected to happen. At the same time, the way the incentive is structured, if there is a company who can procure more content locally and do double the amount of localization, then they get actually double amount of incentive. So again, I'm actually quite happy with the way the program is structured, where without tying hands of manufacturers too much, it has provided enough flexibility where individual company can take decisions which are in their interests, which meet their risk appetite, and at the same time, the goal in terms of Atmanirbhar Bharat and more localization of entire supply chain, that is the direction in which we will be heading in this program.
Okay, so the information, Mr. Amitabh Khan, so his team is already logged in, so he'll be joining in next 10 minutes.
Rahul, you have raised a very important point regarding the recycling of the material, and urban mining is cheaper than the natural mining, and that also alleviates the requirement of the processing and other issues which are involved. So that is something, and we already have so much of the market. I mean, as I said, the India offers tremendous market potential for all the countries and all the big companies globally. So we already have so much of the lithium-ion batteries lying in our garbages that if it is recycled properly, then we really don't need to import things likewise. So that is a very important point which you have raised.
So which are the technologies qualify ACC? So it has been discussed a long time, and then also in the November paper it has been mentioned. But Rahul and others, if you want to mention, which are the technologies qualify ACC?
Sure. So the way the ACC program is structured is the definition of advanced chemistry cell is dependent on two parameters. One is cycle life, that means how many times you can charge and discharge a battery, and what is the energy density. And again, energy density can be volumetric or galvanometric, that is by weight. So the major which is chosen here is by weight, but both typically for most of the chemistries, the energy density by weight or volume is more or less linear. So by just simplifying the table, they have chosen these two criteria. So the table starts with minimum 50 watt-hour per kg as the energy density. So for any technology which has 50 watt-hour per kg, if you can provide 10,000 or more cycles, you will be eligible for the incentive. If the technology can have energy density more than 125 watt-hour per kg, then you need minimum 4,000 cycles be eligible as an advanced chemistry cell. If you have cells which are capable of having energy density of 200 watt-hour per kg, then you need to have only 2,000 cycles for qualifying. And if you have technologies which are 275 watt-hour per kg or higher, then you need only 1,000 cycles for as a eligibility. So this will enable, and again, we have done detailed mapping, and as I mentioned in my presentation, actually IESA was the entity which helped in expanding the definition of the ACC as compared to the original definition, where we feel that at least around 16 different families of advanced chemistry batteries will be eligible under this program. Now the question is, which are the chemistries where the investors and manufacturers feel comfortable in betting 5 gigawatt hour? That may be a narrower part, but that is a purely commercial decision by individual companies. As far as Niti Aayog is concerned, they have enabled it to a very large extent. And as I mentioned, there is an additional 5 gigawatt hour capacity, our recommendation they have accepted, where it will be niche technologies, which could be even technologies outside this. And we need to work with Department of Science and Technology, DHI and Niti Aayog to define what qualifies as a niche, but that's a work which IESA has already started. And if you have any input, feel free to write to us at contact@indiaiesa.info, or best ways to get involved with IESA and join our monthly technology working group calls, because that's where all the inputs what we provide to government get weighted through a detailed stakeholder process every month, and you can actually be part of these recommendations being provided to the government.
There is a catch in that, Rahul. When you say 200 watt-hour and 2,000 cycles, and you multiply 200 by 2,000, that is the total quantum of energy which that advanced chemistry cell should give out. Now, the number of cycles cannot or should not be the parameters just for measuring these things. Rather, the total energy which that cell gives out should be the critical every time. Now, there may be 5,000 cycles, but every time the energy which goes out of that advanced cell may be diminishing, and it may go down from 90% to 40%, and the total energy which that cell gives out may be less. That is the thing I am very sure that DHI will take care of it while evaluating the project.
Yeah, so Mr. Srivastava, I think probably you are already aware of, but you raised a very important fact. There was a separate committee set up by Niti Aayog to look at the testing criteria and that criteria is already defined. So again, there is at least as far as I am concerned, there is no uncertainty about that. Most of these issues, again, obviously, there is every time there will be people who will not be happy with certain criteria, but all this ambiguity is being taken out. There is a very clear defined guidelines on testing, which is part of the detailed RFI document. And again, it will be there if there are any changes that will be released along with the new document. But there is a very clear process setup of what's the depth of discharge at which the cells will have to be tested for being qualified for the number of cycles. It is defined minimum at 80%. You can do it at 2C at a per cycle C rate. So all those parameters are defined. The testing process is defined. The way the sampling of the cells will happen, which IC or BIS standards will have to be used for sending the cells for certification is defined. So there is lots and lots of thoughts have gone in, as I think Vijayanand mentioned in his opening remarks. I think some of these things we have been waiting for too long, and I think you being at NITI Aayog probably are aware. I think NITI Aayog has used this, I think, every minute of time which was available for answering all the suggestions and recommendations which have come up with more than, I believe NITI Aayog team had done more than 2,000 meetings with different stakeholders during last 18 months as part of finalization of that. But as I said, again, in policies, there is nothing which is perfect, where if everyone is happy with the policy, there is something wrong. But I feel as a independent policy analyst, and again, I'm obviously biased being part of the process, but I think as just a student of the policy, I feel really good. I think this is something which is I'm proud of being associated with as a policy. But obviously, if there are any corrections which are required, obviously there will be process where NITI Aayog or DHI will review the process. If there are some improvements which needs to be done, some correction, there is going to be a tripartite agreement between the central government, state government, and each entity. There will be a forum available where the companies can periodically review the progress with directly CEO of NITI Aayog. And if there are any corrective measures required, the way I understand is NITI Aayog is committing that they are not just doing it for doing the RFP, but they are looking at hand-holding and supporting these companies so that this 50 gigawatt hour becomes a building stone for a vibrant ecosystem in India. And we do get away from this current situation where we are importing 90+% of solar panels. We were importing almost 100% of cell phones, power electronics, core components. So all these things were last 30 years we have been talking about why we keep on missing the bus. I think this time the bus is in sight. If we run, we can still catch it.
Sure. So there is another interesting questions, like now the major market in India, more than 85% is lead acid, and how you see with new ACC chemistry this market will change. So I will be happy to get answers from Mr. Vijayanand ji and Rakesh Malhotra ji.
Yeah, it looks like we are the old boys or the bad boys around when the lithium is being talked about. I know first we need to recognize that the potential lithium holds for creating new markets and new applications. It's unlikely that there will be a head-on competition between lead acid and the lithium, at least for next few years. We are talking about national mobility mission here, transformative mission for mobility. We are talking about renewable energies that are getting integrated with the grid, renewable energies that are being installed for power backup solutions, and more focus on net zero approach. So lithium technology has carved out a niche based on certain functional capabilities and performance features in creating new markets. I think that's where the attraction is. As we go along, I'm sure there will be certain overlap applications where lithium could be picked up for certain specific requirements where probably lead acid is being used with certain compromise, or it's possible that the lithium and the lead acid might work in complementary. If you want a longer duration, slow charge applications to keep the cost lower, but you also want a very fast recharge and high energy density kind of a thing. And we have already put in some hybrid solutions where both lithium and lead acid work together. I think Mr. Kant has joined. I would not like to take any additional time, and let's listen to him.
Yes, so anyone from CEO's office has joined, or they're setting up? But in meantime, Rakeshji, you can answer. So once they are
Yeah,
doing this.
I think Vijay has picked up the points quite okay. But here's the thing, there will be, just to simplify it, there will be probably about a 15 to 20% overlap of application segments between lithium and lead acid, just to simplify a complex issue into a simpler dynamic. But that does mean that there is an 80% and a growing market of what lead acid batteries are able to serve better. And then there are these whole new segments that are just new markets coming up in India and elsewhere in the world, whether it is mobility or distributed storage or grid scale storage and so on and so forth, which will be additional storage markets. So the way I look at it, it is a time when my addressable market opportunity is expanding by 2-3 times over the next 5-6 years. So that is probably music to any entrepreneur's ear, that you are in a position to go into a market which is expanding and growing by virtue of new segments opening up over the next 5-6 years. I think that's the real big opportunity. Lithium or anything else is just the fact that there is so many new segments of market opening up, and that opens up opportunity, competition, development, innovation, all of those things. That's the real opportunity. And I think the PLI scheme is doing its bit in terms of getting it started, but it also has its own challenges around it, which will be something that I guess will get discussed further in the panel as we go on. But lead acid battery is alive and well. And I think both Vijay and us, we are investing still in creating capacities and developing applications both on lead acid, as well as we want to do something on the opportunity on the ACC side. Right? So.
That was rightly said, Rakeshji. And maybe if you think you have a couple of minutes before Mr. Khan joins,
Yes,
can you make me a presenter? I just want to share one graphic that pointedly addresses this question.
Perfect.
Sir,
I think Mr. Kanti is here. We will listen to him. We'll take this
Yes.
up at later.
My apologies, I was caught up in another meeting with the cabinet. So, really sorry.
No problem, sir. Good evening, sir. This is Rahul Walalkar on behalf of India Energy Storage Alliance. All our members would like to welcome you for this forum, and again congratulations to you also for the cabinet approval. I know how hard you have worked for not just shaping the mission but ensuring the cabinet approval comes in. So again, our sincere gratitude and thanks to you for your tireless effort for this. So we are now looking at this becoming a foundation stone, and a little bit earlier I did an overview presentation to just talk about high level about the mission and also set the IESA vision, where we have mentioned that this 50 gigawatt hour is not the end goal. It is a starting point for India to get into the next generation clean energy technologies. And as a IESA, we are setting a vision where we would like this 50 gigawatt hour manufacturing to come online by 27 or sooner, and then by 2030 we should be looking at doubling that capacity to 100 gigawatt hour and maybe scaling it up to even 500 gigawatt hour or more by 2035. So we are really excited that the way the program is structured, there are a lot of opportunities for complete supply chain companies because of the value addition clause to come in, as well as other components. So we have for this webinar more than 700 participants from 30 plus countries have signed up. So there are a lot of new companies who are also looking at diversifying and investing into India on that. So I would like to hand it over to you. Also on the panel we have Sri Anil Srivastava, who have worked with you very closely, Mr. Vijayanand Samudrala, CEO of Amar Raja Batteries and part of the Leadership Council of IESA, as well as Mr. Rakesh Malhotra, who is the founder of Luminous, as well as LiveGuard and SAR Group. and very heavily invested into this ecosystem, and my partner in crime, Devi Prasad Dash, Executive Director for India Energy Storage Alliance. So without further delay, I would like to hand it over to you and hear your thoughts on this.
Thank you, Rahul. And thanks to all the participants who have joined us today from different parts of India and the world. First of all, I hope everyone in the audience is safe and healthy, and your loved ones are being fully cared for. My only request is that please stay safe and please stay healthy. I thank the industry for supporting Niti Aayog in this path-breaking initiative for battery manufacturing, and especially IESA for arranging the countless webinars like this and for standing to support this like a rock. So we greatly appreciate all the efforts of IESA in this direction. The cabinet met on May 12th and approved the National Advanced Chemistry Cell Battery Program. And this was a culmination of a 2-year-long effort with multi-stakeholder consultation. I would like to thank the Prime Minister for approving this historic program, despite a very challenging year, very challenging year in our hands, where priority is being given to health. Critical applications such as transport, energy transmission, storage, and communication sector need advanced batteries as we become more connected and look to decarbonize our lives and our world. Advanced chemistries with high energy density, long life, and lightweight is highly beneficial in a wide range of applications, and they are the key drivers to carry out the decarbonization agenda. A clean economy powered by clean technologies has been viewed as a very niche subset of the real economy and surviving under the patronage of eco-warriors and a bucket full of state subsidies. At least that is what we were told just a decade ago. But the past decade has shown that clean technologies, from renewables to electric vehicles to LED lights, can not only survive without state subsidies, but over time also upend existing paradigms, reduce energy prices, and radically improve the ease of living. Much can be inferred from recent events and market signals. First, in August 2020, the valuation of global e-vehicle giant Tesla reached close to 380 billion, and that was more than that of the next 12 largest automakers combined. To recover from the impact of COVID-19 and battle the impending threat of global warming, governments across the world are making decisive investments and strategies for clean technologies. This has created a pipeline of growing demand for clean tech components such as batteries. US and EU are all going big in EVs and are attracting export and are very attractive export markets for India. We are proud to have made significant RE deployment by setting and following up on ambitious renewable energy goals and targets. We also lead by example for developed and developing countries to follow. At the UN's Climate Action Summit in September 2019, the Prime Minister had announced doubling of India's non-fossil fuel target to 450 gigawatt of renewable energy installed capacity by 2030, from 175 gigawatt by 2022. This includes about 300 gigawatt of solar, 140 gigawatt of wind, and 10 gigawatt of biomass-based capacity. India has already achieved close to 95 gigawatt, making it one of the top 4 renewable markets in the world. India is now poised to develop its own energy storage and battery infrastructure to fill domestic and foreign demand. The production-linked incentive scheme provides the right incentive for India to reduce costs for RE deployment and transition to electric mobility. In my view, this is one of the most critical PLI schemes. India's energy storage market in 2030 is expected to be worth 100,000 crores across the electric vehicles, stationary storage, consumer electronics, rail and defense sector. 80% of our vehicles are two-wheelers and three-wheelers, and we need to go fully EV on all of them. We need to push for long-distance commercial vehicles also, and ensure that public transportation also goes EV. Green hydrogen will be the future to decarbonize many sectors of fertilizer, of petroleum, of long-distance transport. But there are two different segments. Battery is important for both electric storage. It is important for two-wheelers and three-wheelers. Hydrogen is important for decarbonizing many other sectors where electricity cannot decarbonize them, like steel manufacturing, like fertilizer manufacturing, and many, many others. And only if we are able to do that, we can use green hydrogen also for long distance transport. Now we must capture and take on leadership position in these sunrise industry. Quite often we get into sunset areas of industries, and there it becomes very difficult to capture global markets. Our aim should be to support market development and deploy Make in India batteries over the coming decades. India can capture approximately 80% of the value from advanced battery manufacturing using current advanced battery technologies, notwithstanding the need to import lithium and cobalt material. They would comprise only 19% of the value of the battery. India's strength in chemical processing should be leveraged to reach higher value addition. Emerging battery technologies such as solid-state lithium metal air or lithium sulfur may be able to capture even higher shares of value domestically. India's demand for batteries across different use
Not able to hear you. Maybe there is some mic issue.
Mr. Kant, we lost your voice for last 30 seconds. Mr. Kant, we have lost your voice for last 1 minute.
Okay.
No, it's still muted.
A transition of this nature, can you hear? Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Okay. India's demand for batteries across different use cases can enable, or let me go back. India can capture approximately 80% of the value from advanced battery manufacturing using current advanced battery technologies, notwithstanding the need to import lithium and cobalt materials. India's strength in chemical processing should be leveraged to reach higher value addition. Emerging battery technologies such as solid-state lithium, metal air, or lithium sulfur may be able to capture even higher share of values domestically. India's demand for batteries across different use cases can enable economies of scale and support our ambitious target of 50 gigawatt of installed capacity of advanced chemistry cells through multiple gigascale factories by 2025. From 2025 to 2028, we should aim to take it to 100 gigawatt, and from 28 onwards, aim to become a global champion. A transition of this nature will enable the nation to save almost 2 lakh crore by avoiding oil imports, enhancing our energy security, and will attract 45,000 crore investment at the cell level alone. Bloomberg NEF estimates that India is already the lowest cost country for manufacturing cells at around $92 per kilowatt hour in an optimistic scenario. They estimate that subsidies could reduce cost to $65 per kilowatt hour as a theoretical maximum. This makes India as an export competitive destination. India has the most attractive possibility of expansion in consumption of communication devices, vehicles, and energy. This makes India a growth market where early investment will reap enormous dividends down the line. With the ACC PLI scheme combined with India's safe intellectual property, rising demand, and lowered costs, this is a ripe opportunity for investment in India's battery gigafactories. One key learning from the globe from the COVID-19 pandemic, it is the importance in ensuring resilience in industry and medical supply chains. And therefore, we must become self-reliant in this area. India can become the trusted global partner for ACC battery technology. Now the baton is passed on to the industry and all of you to drive this revolution. All of you must take leadership position and make this a reality. I'm fully confident of India's industry capabilities to make this a huge success. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you very much, sir, for really inspiring words, and your passion is very evident in your speech, and you were very factual with number of facts, and also you address actually some of the common questions which come up, particularly about the green hydrogen and how it ties up and is it competing or not. And one of the thing addition is that in fact many people
I want to
realize
make that point very clear, that there are two different segments. They don't compete with each other at all. And battery is for electricity, and electricity is actually only 18% of our total energy consumption. 82% energy is in gas, in oil, in coal, and in steel and many other areas which we need to decarbonize. And therefore, the electric storage is here. But green hydrogen is to decarbonize, hard to electrify sectors. And those are sectors where we import worth about 160 billion. So you need green hydrogen to, for those sectors. And in this sector, battery is for two-wheelers, three-wheelers, and for energy storage. And therefore, if we do not use storage, it will not be possible to drive to move towards an EV revolution also. So these are two different areas which is very critical.
Yes. And as the ISA, we are really excited to support both these visions of you as well as the Niti Aayog, because the way we see it is, in fact, green hydrogen, if it becomes reality, then it creates actually additional demand, because electrolyzers will need at least 80% capacity utilization factor to become economical. And just with wind solar hybrid, you cannot get to 80%. So this could generate additional demand, which is not currently factored into the ACC program. Similarly, every truck or every marine application or other application which utilizes hydrogen fuel cell drivetrain will be a hybrid drivetrain, which generates additional demand for batteries, which otherwise will not be there.
I have to rush for the meeting. I came out of the meeting. So Mr. Anil Srivastava is here, and from our side, Mr. Kautham will be there. He's an energy expert in both hydrogen and battery. So he'll be here. He'll respond to all your queries. So kindly excuse me now.
Thank you very much, sir, for being here and all your work. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. So just taking it forward, there are many questions has been raised.
Welcome, Kautham. Yeah. So yeah, let's just welcome also Kautham on the webinar. So thank you very much, Kautham, for all the work which you and Niti Aayog team have done. Obviously, the CEO sir has been the face of it and the driver behind it. But again, I want to acknowledge the work done by every member of the Niti Aayog team to answer the tireless amount of questions and the supporting documents. So thank you to all you and all the Niti Aayog team members. So we are handing it over, David, to you.
Thank you.
So it's a good, many points has been clarified, including how much demand can come and how the green hydrogen and battery will be not competing, but they will complementary to each other. So taking the discussions forward and taking the questions from the audience, Mr. Bijanandi, I am just making the presenter where we have left about the lead acid market. So if you can start from that point. Yes. So you are the presenter. You can.
I think this is one question that keeps coming back, saying that is lithium going to be a all-encompassing solution for all energy solutions of the future, energy storage requirement? But that's not going to be the case, I guess. There are going to be a range of electrochemical technologies that will address the needs of various applications. And as somebody who has been deeply involved with the lead acid economy, we network with various people across the globe, and there is definitely a complementary role that a lead acid can play going forward. In fact, the 12-volt system in a EV to provide very secure power for all the safety systems, communication systems, and the subsystems in the vehicle will continue to be protected by the lead acid battery. And there are many other applications. So I was earlier, before Mr. Kant walked in, I was about to share something that I came across as recently as last month. Are you able to see something that I've flashed here, Debbie?
Yes.
Okay. This is just a snapshot, an Avicenna energy study. And I picked up this particular graphic where this question is specifically addressed, more focused on European market. They have global study as well, but this slide is about European market. You can see that the uninterrupted power supply batteries, 30% will be lithium, 70% lead acid. This is 2030 predictions. Telecom, 11% lithium, 89% lead acid. Energy storage, 5% lead acid, but 95% lithium. There is a reason why lithium dominates energy storage applications. Modi power, eventually today lithium is hardly anything, maybe 3-4%, but eventually lithium will occupy a 57% of Modi power versus 43% of lead acid. And mind you, we have not even touched on EV, which is going to be predominantly lithium based. So I was only saying that the role that lead acid will continue to play will have its own utility, but lithium is coming into picture in primarily to address applications that were hitherto not very popular or hitherto that are not scaled up. And that is what should be the focus of this ACC PLI program. ACC PLI is not to look at substitution of lead acid with lithium. It is going to have its own market applications, its own demand requirements that will come up.
So Vijayan, actually excellent point, and thank you for sharing that, because we also actually share the same outlook that it's not about just one technology competing with other. There are hundreds of applications, and different applications will require different technologies. Just the ecosystem which exists with the lead acid batteries, that will have a lot of strength, and it will continue. But at the same time, I think there are new applications coming in beyond what we have considered right now, like the drones or urban air mobility, other new type of consumer devices and other things where energy density is very crucial. And with the way the ACC program is structured, I think as soon as, and this is one important point for everyone to understand if you have not studied the ACC program document, that there is certain qualification which you need to do to be eligible for this. But then within that entire matrix, the company who sets up the factory is free to choose a technology or upgrade the technology, downgrade the technology within that matrix during the life of the program. So if there is some new innovation comes in, new material which enables you to go for higher energy density or cycle life, that can be changed within a quarter, and for the next quarter you can get the incentive amounts available for that. So this is, I feel, one of the most flexible programs where we are not locking any manufacturer to just manufacture one set of technologies because they're submitting an application in next 6 months. So that is something which I am actually personally very happy about as a feature, knowing how fast the some of the technology changes are happening. So Kautam, do you want to add anything about some of the new applications coming up?
Thanks, Rahul. So we do see a lot of new applications coming up, especially all over the world when we discuss with the governments, both from the EU, Singapore, Dubai, and the US. A lot of applications like urban air mobility is picking up a lot of pace. And it seems like a reality is coming fast for urban air mobility. And the advantages of these new applications is they can absorb the costs of very high energy density, very cycle life, which is at the right end of our matrix, which probably our two-wheelers and three-wheelers market cannot observe initially, but some of these international markets does have an opportunity to address this applications, address this high cost and high performance batteries, and kind of cross subsidize them becoming mainstream in commercial applications like EVs and energy. So thank you so much.
Thank you. So there is a questions always raised by the audience. So what are chemistry apart from lithium batteries are eligible for ACC, or is it only lithium?
So as we mentioned, the spectrum is wide open from 50 watt-hour per kg to over 350 watt-hour per kg. So not just lithium-ion, but all types of metal air batteries, solid-state batteries, lithium sulfur batteries, sodium sulfur battery, some of the flow batteries. So the way we see it is the options are quite wide open, and it is up to the companies to choose which technology can give them the desired scale. And again, as long as you are within the matrix, you don't need to commit to the entire 5 gigawatt hour with just one technology. Companies can even have 2 or 3 production lines with different chemistries. So it's not that you need to manufacture everything at minimum 5 gigawatt hour scale. You can have that flexibility as well.
Okay. There is another question which is not relevant, but Kotham and Anil can mention. Is FAME 2 will get extended? And currently for electric buses is allowing import, and it is continuously the deadline is increasing, and for electric buses the import is allowed. When it will be stopped? So interesting questions.
You want me to answer?
Kotham, any point on it?
So from our side, I do know that there are something which is being on the works for the FAME 2 scheme, but apart from that, it's not the right moment to comment on our side.
Okay, okay.
Mr. Anil sir, do you want to add on to that, or do you have any thoughts on that?
I would like to add anything to this at this juncture particularly. Yes, this is the FAME scheme should take care of it, but it has not. So, I mean, how can a deadline be fixed or anything? It's for the DHI and the government to take a call on this.
Okay. So there is another question that is good to see that niche chemistries of 5 gigawatt hour capacity is also added in the PLI scheme. Can you clarify the deadline for the 5 gigawatt hour and which are the chemistries we are expecting? This is from Mr. Anmol Mathur.
Again, some of the details will get clear as the program, the RFP gets announced. But the way we understand is that the first RFP will be for the 5 gigawatt hour individual minimum capacity, and then in next few months the details for the niche technology will be worked out. But yeah, Kautam is back. Kautam, do you have any more clarity on that which you can share?
Yes, yes. The first RFP would be exclusively for the gigafactories, and the niche would be the subsequent addition to it. And definitely the niche would be launched, but it would be subsequent to gigafactories. That's our current understanding.
So Kautam, I think the question was also saying that have we also listed out what are the niche chemistries or niche technologies that will come under the niche ACC apart from the gigafactory?
So very similar to our gigafactory program, the niche would also be technology agnostic, and the exact frameworks around which it will be very similar to the gigafactories, but there might be some relaxations in scale to give allowance for new technologies to come up, and some other additions here and there, because there are a lot of entry barriers which are given for gigafactories. But players who are coming into gigafactories, of course, they might be relaxed for niche technologies, but other frameworks would also be relaxed. But definitely, it would be technology agnostic, But DHI and Niti Aayog would, both teams would sit together and freeze a framework on niche chemistries very soon. But that would be done subsequent to the rollout will be subsequent to the Gigafactory program. So it won't be simultaneous. That's our current understanding.
That's very helpful. That's very helpful. Just a follow up on that. Is it fair to expect that the niche grouping would have a higher performance benchmark at the cell level, either in terms of energy density, recharge time, or cycle life?
Definitely, yes. Yes.
There is one more consideration which was there while this definition for the niche was formulated. It's primarily that the commercialization, the level of commercialization would be looked into while deciding about the niche. That's probably Kaushal could have explained, but that's what is going to be the major line of thinking when the Niti Aayog and the DHI meet.
And
That makes sense because you don't want to get into too academic on the research side for the niche.
Yes, yes. And some of the additional inputs which we have shared in past with DST, because we are also anticipating DST to place some input in this definition, is we are also looking at, are there any other parameters beyond the 2 parameters looked in for the Gigafactory mission, where it could be about safety, it could be about temperature tolerance, or so. Again, those were some of the suggestions which we have shared in past, where not necessarily everything needs to be looked in just from point of view of cycle life and energy density. Again, we don't know if that will be accepted or not, but as a India Energy Storage Alliance, based on some of the technology working group discussions, we have shared these inputs that the niche technology, that definition could be a little bit more flexible, so that we can really look at technologies which have potential maybe 5 years, 7 years down the line. And right now, investing 100 or 500 megawatt hour factory will enable India to have a shot at getting a domestic technology ready for gigafactories when next set of when we are looking at doubling the gigafactory capacity. That's a recommendation from ISA. Final decision will come from Niti and DHI.
So Rahul, another question for Gautam. One of the big assumptions in the demand side is the whole EV and new mobility demand taking off. And is besides the FAME2, there is lots of other enablers in that piece which need to come into play, especially the component ecosystem and so on and so forth. So is there any kind of a linkage on demand side that that Niti is looking at to make sure that these could be non-tariff, it could be non-fiscal stuff, it could be stuff like what happened in China in terms of issuing new license plates or whatever else. Are there any such demand side initiatives that Niti is looking at?
Yeah, I mean, definitely. I mean, enormous amount of time is being spent deliberating at a very highest level. Srivastava as would know, a lot of initiatives are being planned to stimulate demand across all the sectors, from communications to EVs. And even our press release has listed out some of the initiatives, but a lot more are planned. Our advisor, electric mobility, Sudhendu sir, would be the right person to comment on it. He's doing a enormous amount of work, is spending enormous amount of his time in stimulating demand using all kinds of innovative measures. And you would see a lot of such initiatives being spelled out by Sudhendu sir and many other people in DHI in coming times.
So we had a great discussion.
Yeah. Sorry, Devino. So just wanted to add that again, I don't want the entire discussion just to revolve around e-mobility, because again, as you saw in ISA projection, we do expect EV to be a major part. But at the same time, given government has set a vision for 100 gigawatt hour, 450 gigawatt renewable roadmap, there is tremendous opportunity also on the stationary side. And what is exciting is it is no longer just with MNRE. As you know, the CERC has set up a central advisory committee where they have actually for the first time now invited ISA to be part of it, because CERC is looking at structurally addressing any regulatory roadblocks and removing that for stationary storage. Ministry of Power invited ISA to share comments specifically around storage to be integrated as part of the national energy policy. So there are a lot of concrete steps which are being taken across the sectors. There are work happening even with other ministries like railways. Like railways is a huge consumer for batteries with the plan for solarization, other things. So there are a lot of these other ministries also can play a role. And again, Niti Aayog has done a commendable job in coordinating with many other ministries apart from these one or two ministries. Where a lot of time we focus on about just two-wheeler, three-wheeler, or buses.
Yeah,
Okay.
well, that's
Sir,
true. But sorry, yeah, go ahead. Can I? Maybe you want to say something, or can I go ahead?
no, Rakesh, please go ahead.
Okay. All right. No, so Rahul, that's true. And the whole stationary storage and grid scale storage is a large opportunity. But the point I was trying to get to, and maybe this is an issue for debate and thinking at policy level, is that there are certain demand sectors which are very captive in nature, and therefore do not lend themselves as open market access to, for example, a car market is not necessarily that open a market, or for that matter, large scale renewable storage is not that open a market. That will lead to some sort of champions. But if you really want to look at a dynamic industry where a lot of innovation is happening, and the next step or next wave, like we talked last time in our session, if the next wave has to be caught, it will be caught only if we have a lot of application specific technology development happening locally, and then that becoming large and accessible. So for that, in stationary storage, the big area would be the distributed storage, for example. If that is opened up, and if there is regulatory action on tariffs and time of day tariffs, and demand side management opening up, which is not an easy piece, has been talked about for a long time. But if that opens up a lot of market access, because I mean, for a very large scale storage, there is anyway a consolidation in the renewable side itself, and that consolidation will lead to some degree of supply chain access issue for large scale storage. So given that, for a dynamic industry to evolve, I guess there are some of these retail segments of some sort that need to get opened up and be large enough for a lot of innovation to happen.
Yes. No, I agree wholeheartedly with you. And again, I'm quite optimistic right now. I'm quite happy and quite excited, as most of the people can see. But again, I want to don't mislead anyone. This is just the starting point. We haven't won the war. It is just a battle which we have won, and there are lots and lots of things which we need to do right to actually enable the market development, other things. So again, we have right now, I think, more than 200 companies who are listening to this webinar who are not yet part of the ISA ecosystem. So I would again encourage all of you that if you are even remotely interested in this area, then please do join hands with ISA, because we have now 140 plus companies as part of the network, and we are a quite stronger the alliance as compared to where we were 5 years back. But the amount of work which we also need to do is much bigger. So we need all the help which we can get, and we encourage all of you to join hands with us and enable us to help make this transition. But Rakesh, you are absolutely right. There are lots of things which we still need to get it right to enable demand, to enable the ecosystem, and I don't want to undermine those challenges.
And it's doable. I mean, I think a lot easier than. Sorry, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, Rakeshji, there are a few things which are left out in this. Number one, a lot of opening up has been done in terms of the storage, and there is tremendous potential for the new technologies to come up while the decentralization of the storage. As we know, the cost of generation plus the cost of storage now, the solar is much, rather I would say much cheaper than the cost of generation and storage with any other source of electricity generation. And that is one thing which is coming up very fast. Secondly, when we talk about these things, we generally take into mind the larger centers of energy consumption. Whereas we ignore the countryside, we ignore the tremendous scope and the potential which is available in the India, which we have not covered. We still are far from the 24/7 good quality power, although we claim to be a power supply country. And then makes to a very large extent the redundancy of the grid structure. Grid infrastructure is going to be redundant in the thing, and the investment which would be required for that will also be taken into consideration. It will not really be required. So all these things have been taking place, and the Power Ministry and MNRE Ministry in close coordination are working in that direction, and there are scope for that. Coming back to what probably Kautan should have mentioned, the Niti Aayog has taken up certain things for the IEC, for the and other things which need to be taken up along with the electric vehicle promotion of the electric vehicle, which are the non-fiscal and kind of incentives and the kind of the offers. Now there are two major projects which the mission, the electric mobility and the battery storage mission must be taking up. I mean, I don't know what's happening in my absence, but from the World Bank, Asian Development Bank, and the JEF financing for the IEC promotion, popularizing the new energy, the energy, and likewise. So these things are also taken up, as you were rightly saying, that from the demand side as to what should be done, and that is very critical. I mean, it's an excellent scheme which has been prepared. Rahul, I must compliment you and your association and the Niti Aayog for coming out with this excellent. But the 50 gigawatt is nothing compared to what is currently. By 2022, the world would be manufacturing 600 gigawatt hour of the lithium-based energy, the batteries. So with that compared to that, and but then again the same question comes what I was speaking earlier. The India is looked at from the market point of view, whereas we should be the leader and we should try to move forward, move away and outside of the country. So that is very critical. PLI is the small component, is a very excellent initiative to start and to kick-start the thing. But then it should take forward the entire industry, the companies which are interested to take forward and move ahead with that initiative, with that kind of incentive which is being offered to move forward much ahead. And then the entire ecosystem should also be looked into by the entrants and by the industries which are there, and they have to manage the entire ecosystem along with the PLI. PLI is a part of the ecosystem, but then along with that, there the demand side, supply side, OEM, component manufacturers, consumers, and everything needs to be looked into while when trying to enter into the lithium ion or advanced cell chemistries.
Sure. So there is one question, like before closing. So as we have industry, let's have their view, like Vijayananji and Rakeshji and Anish. What's your view on the PLI scheme? Like your standpoint, industries, is the industry happy on what is there in PLI or something? Your expectation, starting from Vijayananji.
Thanks, Devi. I think, if you look at the global scenario for lithium, I have not seen the kind of momentum that we are currently experiencing in many parts of the world in any other kind of industry that is somewhere linked to brick and mortar. We have seen that happening in retail chain. We have seen that happening in software. A lot of disruption, a lot of innovation. What you speak 6 months ago and then what you speak now, there's significant change that's happening there. So India is not going to be working in isolation. We got to be part of the global race. We got to ensure that we are integrated with the global ecosystem, but we got to have self-reliance built. And just as a number, Mr. Srivastava said, 600 gigawatt hours couple of years from now. But if you were to really project that curve from there to 2030, already committed projects in Europe are mind-boggling. And we know China is doing what they have been known to. And then with the, Mr. Biden coming in there, President Biden coming in there, US is not willing to stay left behind. They are talking about 250 gigawatt hours in a double quick time. So give and takes 2.5 trillion watt hour plus minus is what the global, production capacity is being talked about by 2030. So if I see that in that broader canvas background, 50 gigawatt hour looks like nothing. Right. So if you look at yourself part of the global ecosystem, 50 gigawatt hour doesn't really, make a big dent on the whole thing. But having said that, the magic of manufacturing is something that India has missed consistently on many critical sectors. Save automotive component and automotive vehicles for the last 20, 25 years, it's difficult to claim. I'm leaving the core sector out, the steel, fertilizer, and maybe pharma part of it. But the real engineering and real, technology-oriented kind of manufacturing magic is something that we missed out. We missed out on renewable energy capital equipment. We missed out on, the consumer electronics, industrial electronics, power electronics, all that stuff. This is something that we can't miss out. But when as an industry perspective, when I see it, while the future seemed to be really promising, from the market definition perspective, in the Indian context, I don't think there are still definitions of what is the product that this market wants, what is the kind of performance expectations that they want, which applications is it really going to scale up comparatively. Even within those applications, are there standards being developed? We are in that flux stage. Nothing is given. Nothing is, cut in stone. Neither demand patterns are cut in stone, nor technological requirements are cut in stone. And when you look at the technology per se, as far as lithium is concerned, as I said earlier, I haven't seen the startup ecosystem as vibrant as this on the basic manufacturing and the chemistry, materials, the classical aspects of technology. And 6 months ago, somebody said, "Oh, solid state batteries, that's way out in 2028, 2030. Even if you get in that will be at the super luxury cars." But 6 months down the line, you can't spend reading anything related to lithium without coming across solid state as the major theme. So 2028 is getting cut down to 2025 now. In terms of the cost per kilowatt hour of solid state, will it become more affordable than what it was talked about? That's one flux that I see. The other flux, the startup ecosystem and the funding that's coming in from SPACs, the special purpose acquisition companies, again, billions and billions of dollars are flowing into this. Listing yourself in NASDAQ at a 3 billion value or 8 billion value without the revenue promise for next 5 years is nothing, surprising. People who are likely to make their first invoice by 2024 are already getting listed at $3 to $5 billion. So that's a kind of money flowing into this. In this background, I think we need to pick and choose what works for India. We need to pick and choose how to make India self-reliant without being excluded away from the global ecosystem. I think that is what industry is kind of seized right now. In my view, choosing the right technologies for the kind of mobility solutions that we need to solve, or I would say mobility problems that we need to solve. Mr. Kant very clearly said, 85% of that is two-wheeler and three-wheeler in terms of vehicle count, but in terms of passenger kilometers, in terms of urban mobility, in terms of neighborhood goods transportation solutions and all of that, they are unique for India and they are low-hanging fruits that need to be reaped. And that itself probably will be able to justify the 50 gigawatt hour capacity that we are talking about, even before you think bigger than that. But if you can solve the problem of long distance commercial vehicles, if you can solve the problem of public transportation rather than individual transportation alone, if you can solve the problem of multiple fleets that are in operation for either e-commerce or for many other aspects, I think the demand aggregation will happen in much more rapid manner. But then the question that comes to my mind is, I know there is this view that only 20% is lithium and cobalt, and lithium deposits are getting discovered in India. But I think we got to figure out a mechanism of securing our material supply chain on that. While the ACC PLI scheme is definitely imposing 60% local value addition, the processing capability and the competitiveness of processing is something that's going to be much bigger in terms of scale than just catering to 50 gigawatt hours. I would like to see that the raw material side is going up to 20 gigawatt hours, maybe 50 gigawatts for India, but 150 gigawatt hours for somebody else. I don't want to bring in, political, geopolitical risks here, but there are many, many, many geographies that are saying, can I build a supply chain that is independent of China? So when it is independent of China, can it be India that can be seen as a source? Can we get that capacities built in here? Minerals are available, but can we have government to government strategic tie-ups? Can we have industry to strategic tie-ups? And like Mr. Khan said, can we leverage the chemical processing, prowess of India to be able to create that kind of a value addition here? In that scenario, if you get a 200, 300 gigawatt hours of metal processing capability, catering to 50, 60 in the next 5 years for India is not a big challenge. But can we get that first in place? That I think is a very critical, I would say concern for people who are putting in money. The per gigawatt hour investment could be in the range of anywhere between 500 to 600 to 700 crores that we are talking about, in terms of capex investment. And Indian capital comes at a very high interest rate today. Our depreciation costs are pretty high. So the moment I see the P&L and go below EBITDA is where the pain lies. Up to EBITDA, maybe it's a workable solution. But then you go back and look at the futuristic projections of per kilowatt price as given by either BNEF or many other forecasts. Are you looking at $70 per kilowatt hour as your goal? Even you set up a 5-year, 7-year kind of roadmap. If you want to get there, what is going to enable you get there? If scale is one thing that's going to enable you get there, how are you going to get the global scale to be able to compete for procurement efficiency, manufacturing, conversion efficiency? So there are multiple aspects that seem to be at play here. And the one way that at least the definitive risks that need to be taken care of is where PLI probably comes into picture. The unknown risks PLI cannot address, but at least please address the known risks. What are those known risks? One is capital risk. That's a clearly known risk. The other one is to some extent demand risk. And I've heard Gautam talking about many initiatives coming in there, and then the demand consolidation, demand acceleration can happen, and then probably the sourcing risk. These three things, if you can take care of it. Now, if you go and buy a 25 lakh EV today, are the banks ready to fund you today? Do they know what's the end of life valuation that they can look at? Is there a second-hand market for this? I think there is a challenge. Even banks are not very comfortably funding fleet owners or individual EV purchasers. Now you think of somebody trying to set up a 8 gigawatt or a 10 gigawatt hour factory and then asking for a 5,000, 6,000 crores of capital. Go to the bank and say, can you give me funding on that? How risk averse are the funding agencies here? Will the PLI scheme give them, I am a successful bidder in PLI, if at all, can I go with that to the bank and say that, look, I have this PLI scheme, I have this roadmap for the business case. Are you willing to fund me at least 70% of the capital that I'm going to put? That is in another case. So the industry perspective is a mix of these issues. The last one that I want to say, the Niti Aayog, DHI, PMO, they've done an excellent job of finally coming out with this PLI. There's been a lot of stated intent of state governments about promoting EV policy. I think the proof of the pudding is now in execution. Can we get together? Can we have the state, the central, and the investor collaborate together, become the tripartite partnership, and make sure that the execution happens at the most rapid pace? 24 months, 25% domestic value addition, get the 2-3 gigawatt or at least moving. I think this country will be tested. The industry partners will be tested. The government systems will be tested to see, will you be able to make that happen? Can there be a doorstep power supply that can be done? I have handled projects where 9 months is gone just to get the power to your place. The transmission line survey to be done, something that comes in the picture, getting the clearances for that. And then there are places where we have operated where water supply is a big problem. Multiple issues, infrastructure issues. But if you're going to put so much money into a gigafactory, can the partnership of the state government, central government, and the industry partners resolve these at a double quick time? And execution. Can we get that execution efficiency that China is known for? At least on this sector, if we can do that, the magic of manufacturing is not very difficult to achieve.
Thank you. You covered most of the global points and how India could be ambitious and on different from supply chain to manufacturing capacity. So many questions people are raising at different points. 50 gigawatt hour is enough, or we should lower down for a few years and then we should ramp up. It's a very apt answer to many questions raised by other industrialists. Rakesh ji, your view on the industry side, how you see the PLI?
Yep. So I think Vijay has covered most of what I have to say. But first of all, I think Niti Aayog and the ISA team, I think you guys have done a great job here, and it deserves compliments and congratulations on accomplishing this. It is a good starting point, I would say, for us to get into this story. Now the government has done part of its bit at least, and a fair part of its bit. And I think it is now on people like us and the industry from India and overseas to come together and figure out how to make it work. Now, there are obviously multiple challenges that are still ahead of us. This is just the beginning. And look at it like some sort of a, handicap in a golf game, that you have got a little bit of a handicap covered for whatever is the lack of demand or lack of experience or lack of skills or whatever else that might be there. But I think everything from creating sustainable demand to supply chain side of the story and the manufacturing excellence and talent, all of it is work in progress, and actually it's at the early stage of work in progress. So my sense is that it will still be another hockey stick from this hockey stick, Rahul, that we may be starting here and it'll still take some time. And like Vijay is saying, that if we can get to in the next 2 years, even to a 3-4 gigawatt hour of an output effectively happening, then that's what it takes to have people working on lines. That's what it takes to develop competencies. That's what it takes to learn technology. You can buy technology from A, B, or C source, but that's not how it's going to work eventually. There is going to be quite a bit of adoption, evolution that has to happen. And all of that is going to put us through some degree of stress. But I think I'm more confident about demand, and I'm more confident about the ability of the industry to evolve and develop the localization of the know-how to an extent where it can at least take technology from overseas and make it work in India for Indian applications. I see the biggest risk on supply side competitiveness. I see the biggest risk on the ability of the intent of PLI scheme to give the handicap with the 60% value addition being actually getting met, because that's frankly neither in the investor's hand nor in the hands of the intent of the PLI scheme. So it's essentially going to happen outside of this scheme and outside of the investors, what they are doing. So the point is 50 gigawatt hour a large enough volume for a material processing supply chain to really cost effectively and quality effectively built on the ground? I think that's where it's going to be a little bit more of a push and work to be done over the next 3-4 years before we can be out of the woods completely on that issue. And maybe I don't know if it's too late in the day, but maybe there will have to be potentially a possibility of the government and Niti Aayog to keep an eye on how things are evolving on the supply side, to see how you could potentially allow the industry to survive and thrive if there is a gap in the timelines of expectation of supply chain getting developed and actually it getting developed. I think that might be an area where there is some work that will have to get done, in my view, and it is possibly a good idea for Niti to look at a potential safety valve of some sort, in terms of maybe having a handle to extend the timeline a little bit if required, if there is not enough, because you can't really get the manufacturer of the cell to be able to account for the process development on the chemical processing. That really they can't control. So I think that's one issue, and I think some work on the non-fiscal demand side initiatives would be, in my view, the two big priorities that will need to get done on the government side. But I think the industry has its job cut out now. It'll have to figure out a way to cross the hump, take the risk. Vijay is in a relatively less envious position of being a public company, so he's got to meet his monthly and quarterly P&Ls. But I'm sure we will find a lot of interesting entrepreneurial or corporate interest to take on this opportunity, because at the end of the day, the opportunity is really, really large. Now, whether it will happen in 25, 28, or 30, frankly, if it was to be looked at as a long-term play, that shouldn't matter as much to people when they are making that decision. I think the bigger issue in my head is more from the technology and supply side. And the big second wave, I would again say, is going to be after the PLI. And I'm worried about one thing, that if that wave is not large enough, the PLI incentives might become a disincentive for a lot of people to invest in the next wave till the demand really outpaces this 50 gigawatt hour capacity. So I think those 2-3 are the big issues that I can see.
I agree on this. Your points on the supply side and also somehow on the demand side, we are trying to address the ISR. Rahul, you want to mention any points?
No, so again, I think excellent. Insights from both Vidyanand and Rakesh ji. But yeah, one thing again, I cannot I don't envy the Niti Aayog team and especially the CEO for it, because again, just a confession, we started when in 2016 we put actually as a ISA wish list. Our dream was 10 gigawatt hour by 2020. So that was the sort of the mission which we originally went to Niti Aayog with. Unfortunately, in between with people focusing more on assembling, that did not happen. But then actually when looking at 2025, actually I would say that I was aiming too low. I was looking at maybe 20 or 25 gigawatt hour. But I give credit to actually the CEO of Mr. Amitabh Kanji for saying that no, if we are looking at that timeline, then there is no point in just proposing 2025. Let's aim for at least 50. And that time, even frankly, when first time I heard Amitabh Kanji saying that, I was like, what's happening? Is this really true? Obviously, the 2-year delay which has happened in approval, that has now raising questions on the other hand side, that is it now not big enough? But I would say this is as I think all of you have said, this is a good starting point. Now the ball is clearly in the industry's court. And the way I see it is because we have worked with almost every major company who is looking into investing in this. So the PLI program addresses many of the risks which were mentioned to some extent. Obviously, government cannot take care of all the risk and make it completely risk-free. And at the same time, because of the technology aspect, because of the value chain, because of the scale up and the demand conviction what everyone will have, there is enough competition where right now, although I'm confident that government will get at least 70 or 80 gigawatt hour of bids at the minimum, I'm not confident who are the 2 or 3 or 5 companies who will win that. So this is again an exciting time. I think all of us need to get down to. And apart from the supply chain and other aspects which Rakesh ji and Vidyanand mentioned, I think one of the focus areas for ISA now is also skill development, because to some extent 50 gigawatt hour is still a big amount. I think the amount of people resources, the skilled manpower what we need is going to be very large. And unfortunately, right now, globally, we don't have enough people who are trained on this area. And the kind of competition what Vidyanand you mentioned in terms of what's happening in Europe and other, that means we are not competing just within companies in India. So this is going to be a global competition, and we need to work very hard on the skill development. So we are actually stepping up our efforts on ISA Academy. We are putting up efforts on working with all the research labs to try to figure out how the investment which government is doing in setting up 30, 50, 100 crores into setting up labs that can be made accessible to industry, so that we can start utilizing that and not wait another 2 years till each company individually sets up a pilot line. So we are trying to take a lot of these steps. And just one small plug, because of all this growing activity, ISA is also looking at expanding the team. So if there are any young dynamic people or even senior people who are looking really to contribute and work on this, please reach out to Debbie. We have right now 3 to 4 positions open where we really need help in people getting down to it and working with all the ISA members to find solutions to the challenges which could create delays. So we are not assuming that we have reached the finishing line. This is just a starting point, lot of work required to be done. So I don't want just members to join ISA, but I also want, if there are anyone who is listening who is really passionate about it, please reach out to Debbie, and we are right now actively hiring for expanding ISA team.
Rahul, we are last 5-10 minutes. Gautam and Anil Srivastava, what's your suggestions for the industries? Gautam, go ahead, please.
Thanks, Debbie, and thanks, Rahul, for this excellent webinar. All of the points are well taken, and these points are not new to us. We have discussed this again and again with Isa and several other people. One of the key things that we have discussed even today with the senior management in the government is the risk capacity of the industry. Whenever we pitched for this program for approvals at any levels, the one question which always came up is the risk capacity of Indian industry, and which comparing to risk capacity of some other East Asian markets. And we strongly believe, even Secretary DHE today told, this is not business use as usual approach, both from the government and from the industry. This has to be something which is separate from the past, and we look at ACC battery program as something which is path breaking from an institutional design perspective. And already we have a sister program in solar, which was exact carbon copy of the ACC program. And more such programs would follow the institutional philosophy of ACC battery programs. And a lot of our senior CEO, Anil Srivastava sir, RP Gupta sir, now Sudhendu sir, and Secretary sir, all of them have created a new system which Government of India might follow for a lot of future programs. And this is a structure which is to stay, and this is not some one-off experiment. And this is very important for us to establish. And number two, on a finance perspective, a lot of discussions we have even explained to several major Indian banks the entire structure of the program. We had multiple hours of calls in the details of the programs with major Indian banks, and World Bank, ADB, international agencies, every single one of them has supported this program. World Bank has even offered $1 million just to research for the program to us. So everyone is interested to fund, provided all the other details were right. Every one of the banks, international agencies, at least to us, they were very excited. They are very keen to participate to support this program. And number three, the last point is on the supply chain. So it's a kind of a chicken and egg situation where all the supply chain players come to us and ask for visibility in demand, and all the cell makers come to us and write to us saying visibility in supply chain. And at some point, agencies like ISA, Niti Aayog, DHI, and I think we should bring this both sides together in a much more efficient way. I think ISA could play a brilliant role in it along with Niti and DHI. So there are all the major supply chain players in the world, from lithium to cobalt to cathodes to anodes. They have reached out to this program without us reaching out to them. So there is interest not just for India, and none of the supply chain players are looking for Indian market. They're looking for the US market. They're looking for the East Asian market, especially with the diversification going on. Last 6 months, we have seen extraordinary spike in interest from the supply chain players. I think this program PLI would just we do feel it's just a catalyst and nothing more than that. And it's industry's role to make this a success. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Gautam. You mentioned some valid points. And Anil Srivastava, you saw the boom of EVs, and I remember attending the MOVE Summit, how grand it is, and now EV is not far from reality now. Many startups came into place, many MSME and SMEs are in this space, many companies are diversifying to EVs. So with your vast experience, how is the PLI will change the Indian battery industry?
Thanks, Devi, for remembering and reminding me of the MOVE Summit and the battery storage and transformative mobility mission. Well, this is a wonderful scheme, I must say, and most of the features which we had in our mind while we started thinking about it way back in 2016, as Rahul was mentioning now, most of the ingredients have been incorporated. I must say about 80% of it is there, what we had thought about it in Niti Aayog during the earlier days. Yes, of course, it is delayed, no doubt about it. Look at the scheme. I mean, such a wonderful scheme that if I take a ballpark figure of, say, 500 crores of capex per gigawatt hour, now it has come down. It has certainly come down by about 25 to 40% what it was when we used to talk about it in 2017 in Niti Aayog stakeholders discussions and consultations. Now 450 or 500 crores per gigawatt hour of the investment, and for the 50 gigawatt hour, the investment is say 25,000 crores, the ballpark figure. Out of that, if this scheme is offering 18,000 crores the PLI, then look at the quantum which it is offering. It is offering nearly 200 crores per gigawatt hour of the incentives in the PLI, and the capex is required is 500 crores. So it's such a beautiful scheme, but yes, there has to be a word of caution is that the PLI is the only a small part of the whole exercise which the industry will have to do. And Vijay has very beautifully brought out most of the issues which are there in the mind of the industry and which are to be considered. And it is now for the government to look into it and come out with the issues which are raised by my friend Vijay in this discussion. I think any industry which is trying to enter into it, and this is also my piece of advice, is that you cannot, if you enter into this business, then looking at it from the PLI only would be a kind of a short-sighted approach. You have to look beyond PLI. You have to be take into the broader perspective everything besides PLI. And also, I think this is my hunch that anybody who is thinking about only 5 gigawatt hour or something like that, probably nobody would be thinking. If industry is getting into it, then they would be having a much larger vision and much broader perspective in their mind, while they may be starting with 5 gigawatt hour and taking the help of the PLI. So these are the things which are my suggestions for the industry, and these are the very critical issues besides what Rakesh ji and Vijay ji has mentioned in this discussion. This is something which is very important. And another thing which might come to my mind after having this scheme being announced and having being one of the original architects along with R.P. Gupta and all, is PLI now in the changing scenario attractive enough? Now look, Rahul, when you were saying about the 10 gigawatt hour at that time, when the 50 gigawatt hour of the figure was given by the Niti Aayog, at that point of time, probably it looked as if it's a too big a figure for the industry. But then certainly, let me tell you, even at that point of time, the discussion which I used to have with Mr. Kaptan was that 50 gigawatt hour is not going to be sufficient, simply based upon the report which we had come out with from the Niti Aayog about the battery requirements of the India in terms of the adoption of the electric vehicle, the storage and everything which is going to be there. So even 50 gigawatt, and now when we look at it by 2022, we will be having 600 gigawatt hour of the capacity. The word 50 gigawatt hour is looking too small for a country like India, which is the fourth largest automobile manufacturer of the world, of a country which has, I mean, in not leaving the population, but even the density of population and the kind of the solar energy resources which are available with us, 50 gigawatt hour is nothing. This is something which if my friends, industry partners, and from India and from global industry are present here, they must appreciate this point. And then we have to move forward. It's a beautiful scheme which has been launched, but it is much, much beyond it, which is the word is going to be. And the industry has to plan for it, work for it, and move forward with that.
Thank you, Anilji. We're on time. Thanks to all the panelists. Rahul, any closing remarks? In brief, in 1 or 2 lines.
Yeah. No. I was just a little bit worried when in my opening remarks, I sort of said the vision for getting to 500 gigawatt. I thought people will be saying we have not yet started on 50 and Rahul has started talking about 500. What is he smoking? But it's good to have even like Amitabh Kanji, Anil Srivastava ji and everyone else talking about that. We have to look at that. So maybe let's just finalize that. And in fact, I don't want to take the final words. Actually, you have been part and parcel of all this transition, and I would like actually you to take the final word. So handing it over to you for any last comments.
Okay, thank you, Rahul. So let's, we expect all the companies in this industries to apply for this PLI and niche PLI, and there is the scope for startups, MSME and SME and SMEs to enter this space in the ecosystem, maybe membrane, case, or BMS, or any electronics component. So the system is not only gigafactory. So the opportunity is not only a gigafactory. So there is other opportunities in the value chain. Also on the demand side, there is opportunities for the project development, maintenance, operation. So the full value chain is there, from chemical processing to installation, recycling, safety. So we encourage the ecosystem player to be active in this space. And we at ISA is always there to help to help to enter this space or helping any company to enter this space. And thanks everyone for giving your time and discussing this PLI scheme. And we will organize the focus activities on components, raw material, equipment, chemical processing over time. And so the plan of activities is already there. If anyone interested, feel free to reach to us. Thanks to Rakesh Malhotra ji, Bizanan ji, Rahul, Amitabh Khan ji, Kotham, and Anil Srivastava ji. Thank you everyone.
Thank you everyone. Stay safe.
All
Take
the
care everyone.
attendees, please take care in this COVID situation.
Everybody.